All right, I call the Northwest Regional ESD Board of Directors budget hearing to order. Would you like to present the budget to us? How's that?
Well, I think luckily for everybody involved, I don't have much to say. The budget was approved as presented by the budget committee. And so the proposed budget as approved by the committee is attached to your packet tonight. In the cover sheet for the budget presentation attached, you have the approved budget, slides from the budget committee meeting presentation, and then a resolution to adopt the budget if the board chooses to do so tonight. Superintendent Goldman will have a little bit of good news to share about one of our programs later, and I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'm going to leave that alone. But it just reaffirmed the decision to request the high watermark budget from this body so that we could have the appropriations we need to spend. And I'll just leave it at that because, like I said, that's his news to share.
Are there any questions about the budget? Would you like to talk about anything else as part of the budget, or would you like to do that at the finance report? Or
I mean, I am happy to talk about that now. We have time now, and it will shorten my board superintendent report. Very quickly today, and I will still talk about this in the other report because it's in the context of a lot of other things. But today was another important day down in Salem. The grants and aid budget, which I've talked about quite frequently in the last few months with the board, passed out of Education Ways and Means today. And it is a very difficult, I will say it's a very, very difficult budget to understand because they have lumped together what we would consider discrete programs in the state budget are lumped oftentimes in one big bucket. So for instance, the Educator Advancement Council budget passed out of committee at, I think I remember this, I'm looking at Jordan now, $46.2 million. Well, that has a number of programs that are very important to us at the ESD, but also has a number of programs that we don't participate in at the ESD. We cannot tell yet what is the underlying makeup of that budget. And it's going to take some time for us to understand that, conversations with the Department of Ed and others to understand all the, the discrete nature of those types of budgets. And that is primarily how you saw this budget roll. However, there was some specific call outs in the budget, which I am, if you really looked at the sheet, you'd be surprised that I was surprised that EIECSE was a specific call out in the sheet because it is historically kind of a program that would get tucked under a grants and aid large bucket like I just described. And I think, first of all, it speaks to the level of advocacy that we have participated in statewide, but quite honestly, as an agency have led quite a lot of it. Kelsey's at home with her newborn, but maybe she's watching. She did an unbelievable amount of work to galvanize people in our region and to connect us to others outside our region. And you all did an unbelievable amount of work as the Northwest Regional ESD Board to elevate this program. So long story short, shorter than I'm speaking about here, in the EIECSE budget, we were able to achieve getting $7.3 million back into the budget. And if you recall, the governor's budget, I'm going to speak in broad numbers, not a lot of decimals, but the governor's budget was about $408 million. Then the ODE estimate came in and it was $10 million below that. And we had a moment here and a lot of people across the state because these are very thin programs, as you all know right now. We did a ton of advocacy in between that time and now, and we got $7.3 million back. So we are still below current service level. Just want to put that out there. but it is much better off than we thought we were going to be just a couple days ago. And relative to other parts of the state budget picture right now, we have to be very thankful. And when we have the chance with the legislators who have really carried the water on EIECSE, we should be thanking them for their work on this, because other parts of the state budget are fairly diabolical. So for instance, the DELC, the Department of Early Learning and Care budget, and I don't have this in front of me right now, but the levels of reduction from that budget are kind of stunning to me when you think about where we really need to invest our resources for better outcomes in the state of Oregon. Over $40 million of reduction in that small budget, while we're getting into this one $7.3 million addition into this particular budget. And it's a small example. There's all kinds of other problems in the statewide budget. So I'm very happy that we got 7.3, and it's still below current service level. And so that's going to have some ramifications for us, but they are much more manageable than what we were looking at before.
All right. Are there any other questions about the budget before we open it up for any public comment? Board Secretary, are there any public comments from?
Chair Temchuk, there are no public comments this evening.
All right, with that, there are no public comments. Now I open it up for the board to deliberate on the budget that's been presented to us. Right, I know we all sat in on the budget committee discussions, but this is our time. Maureen?
So we need to deliberate before we move into a motion.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not deliberating. My only deliberation is on the motion. It's actually just says to approve it as opposed to the detail. So that's my only question on the motion itself, but not a deliberation on the budget.
I think there's the resolution page, and I
Right.
believe we're going to have to take it from there.
Yeah, it is. It's on the bottom of the resolution.
Yeah, no easy out on that
Yeah.
one.
Any other? Well, I'm just gonna say this. We can keep talking about how much more money we wish we had and needed, and what is needed for the students that we serve and the families that we serve. But even though there's still a few days, weeks, maybe left in the session, I think the die is kind of in cast there, and we know where we're going to get. I think for me, this means that we recalibrate what we're going to do, so we're not having these same exact discussions next year. And it seems like all the years that I've been involved in education, almost every year we are having this discussion. So my take on this is once we are done with this budget and we get to work and our staff knows what they have to do, we need to do our best in our time to let our legislators know the kind of work we are doing, so that they truly understand the work that we are doing and what a difference the ESD makes upstream, so that it makes sense downstream. And it is about a return on investment. So we're just not talking about these budgets and these millions of dollars that they absolutely understand. And the other thing is we have to, as a board, look at finding champions for our ESD, finding champions of people, legislators that truly understand the work that is done by educational service districts. And I know when the legislators are in session, they are an inch deep and a mile wide. They have to take care of so many different things. But it is in our best interest when they are not down there that we spend time so that they better understand, and we cultivate a champion at the legislature, so that when this comes up, because it's going to come up again, we have someone that we can go to that is a champion for us down there. So as I deliberate that, the staff, thank you so much for delivering. The budget committee that we met with, I appreciate all the people from our community that sit on that budget committee and helped us with that. We know that there were not some easy decisions to make. And again, we can talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, that the staff does not have enough, that we do not have enough for the programs. We do not have enough for our families that are counting on us. But instead, I'd like to move on with the resolution and then figure out when we get together later this summer, how we're going to look to correct this. So we're having a different discussion a year from now. So with that, I am open to resolution.
Chair Klimchuk,
Yes.
just to try to save Vice Chair Wolf a little bit. As a procedural matter, you can absolutely read all the numbers if you'd like to. You don't have to legally. You can just say as presented or as follows.
So that what was quoted is.
Well,
On the.
when you're looking at the resolution, like read the be it resolved, like read the words, but you don't have to read all the numbers.
Imposing the tax. Okay.
Okay.
Well, no, starting at the top, the adopting the budget. Yeah, read all the words. You don't have to read all the numbers.
Okay, so Jordan, in all seriousness though, before I move, thank you so much, and Dan, for tremendous hard work and for making some of those tough calls that we're gonna show hope and optimism when it's really easy to opt not to. So thank you for amazing work for you and your team.
Thank you.
So with that, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Northwest Regional Education Service District hereby adopt the budget for the fiscal year 2025-26 in the total of $264,191,573, now on file at the administrative office located at 5825 Northeast Ray Circle, Hillsboro, Oregon, 97124. And so do I go to the bottom to imposing the tax or read the summary?
Do we have to adopt each one individually?
Every board does it differently. I think it's a little cleaner to do one at a time.
Okay.
Okay,
But-
so I will do one, but I can read the total, not every line. Is that correct? Is that what you meant?
So
General fund.
yes, on the making appropriations, be it resolved that the amounts shown below are hereby appointed for the fiscal year for the following purposes. That's all you have to say.
Can I say what Jordan said? All right.
So moved.
So you guys, I'm sorry. I think it's been a lot. So I'm great. So are we done?
No,
I
we've
just
got
need
a
general
motion on the floor right now. We've got a
Okay.
resolution on the floor. So
Russell second.
it's been properly moved and seconded that we have a resolution. What was said, it's an adoption of the budget for the fiscal year 25-26. So we have a resolution on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Say nay. All right, motion passes unanimously that we have adopted the budget. Now, is there any other resolutions that we need to adopt?
Oh, you go.
All right.
You're on a roll. You got it. But I think you need to.
Okay.
State
I'm
the
doing
next.
Imposing checks, right?
Does,
That I
Yeah.
jumped to imposing the tax.
Yes.
Correct, yeah. Imposing the tax, be it resolved that the following ad valorem property taxes are hereby imposed upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the district for the tax year 25-26 at the rate of 0.1538 per thousand assessed value for a permanent tax rate. And then categorizing that tax, be it resolved that the taxes imposed are hereby categorized for purposes of Article 11, Section 11B, as subject to the education limitation, permanent tax rate of 0.1538 per thousand assessed value, excluded from limitation, general obligation bond debt service, which is zero. The above resolution statements were approved and declared adopted on this 11th day of June 25, assuming that occurs.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the resolution on the floor to impose the tax as a result of the 25-26 on property taxes, on the assessed value, and also be resolved that the taxes imposed are hereby categorized for the purpose of Article 11, Section 11B. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Nay? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, board.
Is there any other orders of business?
Madam Chair, if I might just add, because Tara Van Dyke is in the room. This really is a testament to Tara's work. She does this every year, does it with a high degree of fidelity and professionalism, and just wanted to thank her for her work on that.
Yes, thanks to working in your staff. Everyone, we know that we, fumble over these big numbers and all that kind of thing, but we know what's behind it and all the work and thank you, because we know that does not come easily, so we appreciate that. So with that,
Thank you.
I declare the budget hearing closed. And we have 10 minutes before we start the general session. Of the Northwest Regional ESD General Board Meeting on June 11th, 2025 to order. We will start off with the roll call by Board Secretary White.
Becky Timchuck,
Here.
Chris Riley,
Here.
Dorian Russell,
Here.
Doug Dougherty,
Here.
Ernest Stevens,
Here.
Maureen Wolf,
Here.
Michelle Graham,
Here.
Miriam Meneses Rios,
Here.
and Paul Jarrell is absent this evening.
And Paul is excused. All right, thank you so much. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Michelle, would you lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Thank you. Please stand.
Thank you. And with that, we are going to hear our land acknowledgement by Board Director Miriam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight I will go ahead and read the land acknowledgement in Spanish. Queremos reconocer que nos reunimos como el Distrito de Servicios Educativos para la región del noroeste en las tierras tradicionales, pasadas y presentes de los pueblos Chinook, Clatskanie, Clatsop, Nehalem, Kalapuya, Siletz y Tillamook. Y honramos con gratitud la tierra misma y a las personas que la han procurado a lo largo de las generaciones.
Thank you so much for doing that in Spanish this evening. We are going to miss having you with this, but thank you so much for the difference that you have made and that you could do that for us tonight. Appreciate that. Board members, are there any additions or revisions to the agenda tonight? All right, with that, we'll go into our first order of business. We are very happy to be administering the board oath. First to the newly elected Michelle Graham. So Superintendent Goldman, I will hand it to you.
Oh, this is the best part of the meeting. Congratulations and thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, are you ready to read the oath with me? Okay.
You're gonna put here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to repeat after me. So say, I, and state your name,
I, Michelle Graham,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the laws of the United States and the state of Oregon
to support the laws of the United States and the state of Oregon
and the policies of the Northwest Regional ESD,
and the policies of the Northwest Regional ESD,
and faithfully discharge any duties
and faithfully discharge any duties
which shall become my responsibility
which will become my responsibility
as a member of.
as a member of the board.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
And the fun keeps coming. And we have with us tonight also the appointed position. And I'm going to try. Mirror? Yeah, mirror, right. Cementel?
Yeah.
Cementel. All right, we will get it. I promise we will get it, but welcome this evening.
Thank
Yeah.
Do the best. Okay, ready? I state your name,
I, NWRESD,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the laws of the United States
to support the laws of the United States
and the state of Oregon,
and the state of Oregon,
and policies of the Northwest Regional ESD,
and the policies of the Northwest Regional ESD,
faithfully discharge any duties
and faithfully discharge any duties
which shall become my responsibility.
which shall become my responsibilities as a member of the board.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Amir, we'll make our official welcome when we meet again later this summer. And but thank you so much for agreeing to serve on the Northwest Regional ESD Board. So
The question was, did we have to vote? No, because the school boards elect. Oh, no.
no, she's replaced.
elect members of.
Yes, you did have to reverse.
Oh,
So I thought maybe I just don't remember.
Let's just pretend. No, I'm just kidding.
We are
This
just
is-
nailing it.
We are. You
Alright,
think that this is our first time we've ever.
No.
No, what we do need to do is take a vote and there's some.
So Chris, thank you very much for keeping us, we knew we need a historian and people that have been around a while, so thank you very much for doing that. So we are going to come back because Amira is going to be replacing the social services position. Rather than those of us that represent zones are voted in by the school boards, this one is approved by the board, by the elected members. Yes, the members that are elected. So,
True story.
yeah.
True story. True story.
I think what probably threw us a little bit is we were wondering whether we should do this after
Summer.
in the summer or do it now. And I think that. Yes, yes,
You should definitely take a vote.
yes.
The materials are in the board packet.
So I will move that we elect. Now I hear Mandel as the appointed social services board member.
Nice.
And then and then Dorian, Michelle,
Me,
and
Ernest.
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 No, no,
Ernest
no.
is business.
Ernest is business.
Yep, on business.
3, 4, 5.
Right, yeah. Okay, so we have a motion, we have
Second.
so it's been properly moved and seconded that we appoint Amir Cemental. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. So those that are elected to the board signify by saying aye if you approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Nay. With that, motion passes unanimously. And through the magic of television, we've already done the swearing in. So I'm so glad that worked out. It would have been embarrassing had we voted no, but you can tell it's the end of the year. We are usually right on top of stuff. So, right?
We are.
So anyway, congratulations. Thank you, Chris, thank you, board, for making sure that we did it the proper way here. Okay, with that, now Superintendent Goldman, would you like to share your report with us?
I'm not sure if I do anymore. And give it a shot. So, thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Mira. I'm really excited to get to work with Mira again. We were joking just in the room here before because during the pandemic, in Mira's role at the county, we spent a lot of time in one or two dimensions, however you think about Zoom, and always extremely professional under very difficult circumstances. So I really appreciate you being on our board. So, yeah, let's start with some celebrations. It is, as Chair Tim Chuck just mentioned, it's June. And it's a really busy time. It's an unbelievably busy time in schools, obviously, graduation celebrations, all the end of the year stuff. It's really exciting, exhilarating, and exhausting. And it's often difficult to kind of just take a moment and look back and think about how far we've come over the course of the year. So I did start my written report with a whole bunch of links. And I hope the board had an opportunity to kind of go into some of these. We have had some amazing highlights for the year, and we can't possibly capture them in our top 10 of the year stories that we put out. But a couple that came to mind as I was thinking about this moment with the board are listed here, like why your kids just got a game-changing internet upgrade. Oftentimes, the work of technology departments goes unseen. It's like the plumbing in the walls, but it's basically a life necessity at this point, especially in schools, to have highly functional, fast internet for emergency services, instruction, the whole gamut. So this is a story about some amazing work that Stuart and his team have done this year. We also did a couple of series of these Backstage Pass videos. They're super fun to make, and I learn a ton about our amazing staff while we do it. We had a couple of Stuart's team again doing some cybersecurity stuff, and it was like one of the geekiest and most fun times I've had in a really long time talking to those two guys. So it was really fun, and others, right? We are really leaning into our work here at the ESD and improving reading outcomes. We have epidemic in our nation around literacy rates, and Oregon is lagging. And we take that very seriously here at the ESD. And even tonight, we're going to hear from Ryan Velasquez, who is one of our instruction directors, who's going to talk about what we're doing more specifically in reading, but there's a link here too. And then two more things that I wanted to highlight before I get into some budget news here. One is the freshman year isn't what it used to be. And if the board recalls, we were out in Seaside for a board meeting, and we had some amazing ninth grade students from the Seaside School District talk to us about how they've engaged in change action in their school, and how teachers and other educators are using data and other support systems to make sure kids get through that freshman year with the credits that they need, because when they don't, the prognosis for dropout is quite high. And so really great work that we do here at the ESD regarding that. And then lastly, we talked about this in the budget hearing, but I'll talk about it again. Our work around trying to get a chronically underfunded early learning, early intervention, early childhood special education program funded more appropriately. And I will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Just the work that we have done in this agency to make EIECSE a known thing in the legislature, where people know what it is, they are talking about it. And as I shared in the budget committee, not the budget committee, in the budget hearing, we actually got an increase, got some increase in funding, not to the level that we truly need, but it was more than most other programs in the state budget. And that's because of the work that we've done here at the ESD. I'm very proud of it. And I'm actually very proud of this board for your advocacy as well. So that does bring me into budgets and legislative sessions. And I did talk again about this earlier, so I'm not going to do the whole rundown here. But we only have a couple of weeks, if that, left in the legislative session, and things are moving quite quickly now. It's the, wait, and then boom, things are upon us. And that is really what's happened here in this budget session, as all the federal uncertainty has really paralyzed a lot of decision-making around money in the legislature. And now things have to get done, and they are getting done very quickly. So very quickly on school funding in general, last week, the state school fund number was basically essentially locked in at the Education Ways and Means process. It's going to the full Ways and Means, and every indication is that this is a lock. And that's at $11.36 billion. And it is touted as a historic investment. And despite the approximate 11% increase for Oregon's K-12 school districts, we are seeing almost every one of our school districts in our region, and certainly most throughout the state, are making really severe budget cuts. And those two things don't compute, right, all the time. Like a headline that says historic investment, and then so many reductions happening at the same time. And what you're seeing is a couple of things that I wrote about here, but very quickly, you have very fast escalating cost drivers in the system, from wages and benefits and all those types of things. And most of our budgets are, almost 90% of our budget is people. But you also have big drivers in utilities and other kinds of cost drivers, a big PERS rate increase for many of our school districts. And we hired a lot of people, not just at the ESD, I mean, in the state of Oregon, hired a lot of people over the last couple of years with federal relief funds, and a lot of a lot of different funding streams that came into all public sectors to keep the country going, really. And we have not made the requisite staff reductions as students have disenrolled from our public schools. So we have a declining enrollment issue. All that comes together to this, to these very difficult times in our school systems. And the big impact, short-term impacts, to the ESD is that the districts use the state school fund to purchase services from the ESD. And so what we have seen is a reduction in the basically purchase services from districts into some programs in our ESD. So like, for instance, our slot cost purchase, our purchases of slots at Levi Anderson Learning Center are down because districts don't have the resources to pay for those kind of slots at the same levels. So those are things that we have to navigate within our budget that the board just approved. But when the money doesn't come in, we have to reduce services. So we're evaluating all of those things right now. I mentioned already that the grants and aid budget was passed today out of the Education Ways and Means. That again is going to the full ways meeting. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very difficult and opaque budget. It is very rolled up. It's going to take us a few days to understand all the components. The one thing that I will say here that I didn't mention in the written report, Director Ely and I were speaking about this earlier today. The ESD has about 130 different grant revenue streams. When I was a district superintendent, I worried about the state school fund. And then we had grants, but they did not make up a sizable portion of the budget. It was state school fund. Here, it is completely flipped. We are highly dependent on these other funding streams, and we have 130 of them about in our budget. Of those, many of them, a majority of them perhaps, are braided funding between federal funds and state funds. And so you can just feel, you know what's happening at the federal level right now on education funding specifically. And then think about the state trying to figure out what the federal government's going to do as they braid together these funding streams. And then to top that off, we have a mix of general funding at the state level and then Student Success Act funding and some other revenue streams. It gets unbelievably complex for us at the ESD, especially our ESD, because we're so large and diverse. And so that's what we're trying to navigate right now with this grant and aids budget and trying to figure out all the nooks and crannies within that. And it's going to take us a few days. Like I said earlier, we did make out better than most other state agencies. So people do champion ESDs a little bit down there. We can do a lot better for sure. But we did do better than a lot of other agencies in the state budget. I did write quite a bit here about our outdoor school. This is one of those things that we can't figure out yet in the grants and aid budget. We are still trying to dissect what this really means. But there is and actually this wouldn't be in the grants and aid. This is in the higher education coordinating council budget. We can't yet figure out if this is a reduction from what we had last year, or if it was a reduction from what was planned to give us. And it is another one of these very opaque and difficult things to figure out. So we are trying very hard to figure out what this means. We do believe that it means it's going to be less outdoor school programming for kids in the state of Oregon. And it's a very confusing one to us because we know that this is a voter approved program, Measure 99, back in, 2017 or 15, something in there. And we believe that this level of reduction will be very difficult for us to deliver on the promise in that voter approved measure of a minimum 3-day outdoor school experience for every kid in Oregon. It's a very large program for us. It's an amazing program for us. It is super fun and awesome and full of really cool learning. And It's like my favorite day ever, every time I go to a outdoor school experience. And I know kids feel that way by and large as well. So this is something that we have to keep our eye on. We're not exactly sure what it means yet. All this put together, I do think it's my responsibility when things aren't shaping up exactly how we want them to do on our budget. We have to give people notice, fair notice, that if things land the way they are right now, we will be most likely having a small reduction in force. Right now, we are trying to thread the needle of any staff position losses through attrition. There are just might be a few places where licensure requirements don't match up with, the ability for us to reassign staff. The EIE-CSE news that we got today, getting an additional $7.3 million will really relieve the number of layoffs that we were thinking we might have to do. So it's better news than when I wrote the report, but I want the board to know that we may have to cross that bridge, and we'll be working on that as soon as the legislature is done with their business. And I did want to make in here just a reminder. I like to remind the board when we come up short on EIE-CSE, for instance, in the budget, which again is not as big a gap as we thought, we can no longer continue to backfill that program by taking funds from other programs to do so. Like I said, in the ESD budget, our general fund is very small, and our other funds are targeted specific revenue funds. And we just don't have the kind of flexibility to take from a different program that we have an agreement to deliver services on and then backfill EIE-CSE. So the last biennium, we spent over $3.6 million from our reserves and other more flexible funds to fill this funding shortfall, and we just simply cannot do that again. Okay, so I was told, you do your good news, it's your bad news, and then you end some good news, and it makes a nice sandwich. So that's what I'm going for here. It is the end of the year, and there is a lot to celebrate in our ESD, and I can't wait in July for a meeting with the board, because we've made a lot of strategic progress related to our strategic plan and other strategic work that we will be talking about at that time. But it is also a time where we get to recognize people who are leaving the agency, who have committed their lives and their careers to other people. I think it's just an amazing thing to commit your career to other people's children, basically. And that's what our staff do here at the ESD. As I said here, we have 15 retirees this year. They're an amazing group. And we get to do a retirement celebration here at the ESD. And this year I talked a little bit about Arthur Ashe, great tennis player Arthur Ashe, and social change agent. He talked about heroism, and he said, true heroism is remarkably sober, very undramatic. It is not the urge to surpass all others at whatever cost, but the urge to serve others at whatever the cost. And our retirees, to me, and the people who spend their careers in public education, they fit this bill. They transform lives. They have civic virtue. They often do it under the cover, and they don't ask for a lot in return. And I'm very proud of our folks here who are retiring. And of course, we have somebody in the room here who's going to be retiring from us, and the board knows her well, and that's Debbie Simons. Debbie is retiring from the ESD after a full career. And as I wrote here, before she came to the ESD, she was 25 years serving in multiple school districts in Oregon, in Southern Oregon. And she came here during the pandemic. And another person who came, just like we're mostly in two dimensions, hard to make relationships with people, and in an unbelievably challenging time to keep a staff focused and together and felt like they were cared about. And we did that, and she did that through the vaccine, all the vaccine efforts to work through people's exclusion in requests, hybrid work, pulling people back in and out, and was just a remarkable breath of fresh air in the agency at that time, and just brought a very high level of expertise to the organization. So I just wanted to thank Debbie as this is her last board meeting. So thank you, Debbie. And then lastly, I did want to thank Miriam Meneses Rios here for her service on the board. I know that, and I wrote here that Miriam, it's not exactly Miriam's choice to leave the board, but she did take a new job and doesn't fit in the social services position anymore, but she's doing amazing work and is, one of these public educators now that is, like a hero, like Arthur Ashe said. So you've just been a great advocate here at the ESD, thoughtful, and I've appreciated getting to know you. And I know that you're going to stay on that foundation board. Yeah, right. So thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And then if board members want to join, I'm off to Seaside with a whole bunch of staff here at the ESD to do our student led conference in the Seaside Convention Center on Friday. And with that, that'll be kind of the last hurrah of the year for our staff.
Are there any questions for the superintendent? William?
Actually, I just have a quick request. Debbie, could you just come up for a second? No, I know you hate that, but as Dan was just reflecting on when you came on and we all got to just rush back into COVID. I remember at Seaside meeting you physically for the first time going, I think that's Debbie, but I'm not really sure because I've actually never met her in person. And so I just wanted to make you come up and just personally for all of us to say thank you. Because Chris and you and I have got to spend some quality time together.
Karen, let's not forget.
But just truly, it just hit me about just what it took in human resources during such a difficult time, and just wanted to really express gratitude for everything that you did and just how much I appreciated the opportunity to work with you. So thank you, and I'll defer it out to the chair or other board members, but you deserve this. So thank you so much.
Debbie's only cried a little bit this week.
Yeah.
It's been a rough one. I would like to just make a comment to the board that it has been a true pleasure to serve each of you individually as board members and collectively as a board, and more importantly, the ESD and the students. This is, and I tell Dan all the time, this is the most fun I've had in 32 years, which might say something about what maybe I need to explore some other options in my life. But it has been a true pleasure and probably the greatest professional opportunity I've had. So thank you.
I think we know where to find you in case we need a pinch hitter. So
You do. Many of you have my phone number. I
Yeah.
know I've told Dan I won't change it or block him. So,
And
I mean, after all, I am wearing his socks.
Yeah.
For those of you who missed them, Catherine has a matching pair, and we do know people should you wish for a pair of socks. Because
I
I
think
was
we
just
do
gonna say,
know you can
Debbie
obtain
tells
a
me
pair.
she's not really retiring.
No.
yes.
She's gonna have her own little investigation
Well,
business.
I do, and since the last time we talked, Chris, I actually accepted the interim executive director for the State Personnel Association for the next year, supporting HR people. So
So much for your own business.
yeah,
Huh?
in between, I have a week in Mexico in there.
Great, thank you. Before we move on to recognition and good news, it occurred to me, public comment wasn't on the agenda. We asked for it in the budget meeting, but that covers for the whole thing?
Mhm.
Okay, just didn't want to leave anything else out. So if we had somebody waiting for public comment, so thank you. Okay, now for recognition and good news. Tracy, you want to come up? And I'll let you.
Invite up Scott, Shelley,
And we're just gonna say a few words about a really cool project that they undertook this year, and then we'd like to present this small gift in token of our appreciation. Yeah. So go ahead, Scott.
Would you like to say it?
Oh.
Or would you-
Thanks, sit. Yeah.
So my name is Scott Ryan. I'm the principal at the Beaverton Early Childhood Center, and am now going into my 5th year of service in this position. And I have always felt that I really wanted to bring in more of the community aspect of it. And thanks to Yolanda Coleman in HR, she made an introduction, and that is why Shelley Scott is here with us this evening, is that we were able to enter into an agreement to bring in her CTE early childhood class into Beck, into working with our children and learning what it takes to become an instructional assistant working with children with special needs in the early childhood environment. We learned a lot through this pilot program. I'm going to have Shelley talk to you about it. We've already talked about next year and how to grow and expand that into different avenues as one of those growth opportunities, which I've always felt is, as my partnership with Beaverton School District has grown, it's always been a dream of mine to have Beaverton High School students supporting Northwest Regional students who are Beaverton students in their own BSD pre-Ks. And Shelley and I have been talking about that ability to make that a reality into next year as an expansion of our partnership, as well as having our students come on site to Beck. So Shelley?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Shelley Scott. I'm from Beaverton High School. This is my 7th year as a CTE education teacher. John Poplinski here, recognized him. I've worked with him, and when I was hired originally at Beaverton High School, I was hired because of my expertise in early childhood, and they were planning on having an on-site preschool. 2 of the other high schools do. And so when they went to go build the new high school, they decided they were going to go a different direction. And I remember when that happened, I was like, that was kind of our purpose, was to have this on-site preschool and get this experience in working. What we're learning about is early childhood and being able to work with that age population. And so I knew that I had to reach out and do something different. I wanted to give my high school students experiences that they weren't going to have because we didn't have a preschool on site. And so I know that Northwest Regional, I used to work with Northwest Regional students in my preschool. We had an inclusive preschool, and I've always felt great about Northwest Regional and what they do, and that all preschools, I always felt like, should be inclusive and include them and give them the best opportunity like any other student. And so this last year, I was looking for another experience for my advanced class, and I reached out to Northwest Regional, and they put me in touch with Scott. And right away, we had a Zoom meeting. There was 7 people there, and I had not gone to anybody above me in CTE. It was just like, hey, I'm reaching out. I'm looking for opportunities for my students. And I have to say that the whole team at Beck and Northwest Regional has been phenomenal to work with. They were so inviting, came in, met my students, kind of saw what our classroom vibe was and what the students were like. And we literally, from the fall, got the agreement, everything completed. And for my students, that particular class I've had for every year, we've worked with the high school class, one of our special ed high school classes. And this is their capstone year. So they've interned in elementary schools. And so now they're working with the high school special ed students. And all of a sudden we have this amazing opportunity to work in early childhood with special ed. And my students, I will say, have just loved it. They have learned so much. What Scott's team did was they split the group. And so half the group would be in a conference room where they might have a guest speaker, like we heard from the occupational therapist, the speech therapist, the physical therapist. Human resources came in and told us about job opportunities. We heard from this being a special ed teacher, what that took. We looked at, degree programs, all that, things that Northwest Regional does to support staff to encourage them to continue their education. And then the other students were assigned to the classrooms, and they got to go in and work with the children. They learned about using the equipment, communication equipment. They learned about using the different types of chairs and lifts, experiences that they never would have had if this amazing opportunity. So I always feel like when they say one door closes, another one opens. And Scott has just been great to work with, his whole team. And we are looking at expanding, having a longer internship next year, some other opportunities we're looking at. And so as far as I know, we're the only high school group that's in education that works in special ed. And so without that experience, these students absolutely do not have an idea if this is something that they might be interested in. And also expanding the idea that maybe they don't want to be a classroom teacher, but maybe they want to be a speech therapist or occupational therapist. It gives them opportunities to learn about different career fields in special ed. So it's been such a privilege to work with this team. It's really incredible. They're very responsive. My students literally felt so welcome. And I will say the team also that goes into the conference room, they do get to do fun things like make Play-Doh, all those fun, they love it. The whole group's around there with the flour and they absolutely love it. They are so organized, Leslie and Linda, and they just made my entire group just feel so welcome. It's just been a phenomenal experience, and we look forward to having a partnership hopefully for many, many more years to come. So thank you.
So thank you.
Board members, do you have any questions, comments? Michelle?
How many students do you have in your team, in your group?
This year in my intro to ed class, I believe we had 25. Yeah, that's why we had to split them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I was just gonna say it's phenomenal. It's so exciting, right?
Yeah.
To hear, kind of walk your own talk, right? How do you create those career learning opportunities? And just what an important time to engage. I think the life lessons that your students received all the way around is just fantastic. So thank you. Thanks to both of you. It's really exciting.
Oh, go ahead. Karen.
I also want to say that is really amazing to hear. I have my own daughter who's interested in doing that in her school, not that, with the kids' daycare at her school, but it would be amazing to see this just expand and even go into other schools. But it gives the opportunity for students to really explore, like you said, different potential careers. Not only that, but it also opens the avenue of community and inclusiveness and belonging in a larger school setting with where the students are. So I think that is really amazing, and I look forward to seeing just the continued growth.
So if I could address that, that's actually one of the things that we've talked about, Yolanda and I and Jennifer Vandesheer, my director, have talked about. And so as we go into the next year, I'm working with Yolanda to create the classified mentorship program. And we're going to kind of divide that into true classified mentorship. But the other part we're going to build out is a CTE experience and build out what does it look like to have a robust internship program for students like Shelley's, so that they can come into our buildings that can be then replicated not only in Washington County, but possibly with component school districts and our partners, or of course, my colleagues in Columbia, Tillamook, and Clatsop counties as well.
And I was going to piggyback on sort of that same question is this allowed to be a CTE pathway at Beaverton High School? And when you talked about to expose the students also to speech pathology, occupational thought, I know that Beaverton High School has a very robust health careers pathway. Would that be something that could somehow come together? Even though the education is a totally different angle than it is health careers, but how those intersect as a pathway?
It possibly could. One thing I know, the new high school, I'm going to be in the hall with health careers. So they're going to be my neighbor. So we'll probably be working, a lot more closely and be able to have times to interact a lot more. But yeah, it's an extension of education, because a lot of my students who take my class don't know necessarily if they want to be teachers. A lot of them are, some of them are actually in health careers and doubling up, doing 2 pathways at the same time. And some of them want to go into social services. So there's a whole broad spectrum. But the interesting thing is, some of those students who came in thinking they didn't want to be teachers, they had another idea. They end up saying, I've committed, I've decided I want to be a teacher because of this experience. And some of them have said, Ms. Shelley, I've decided definitely not a teacher, but I want to be a child psychologist, or I want to be a school counselor. So any opportunity that we have, we don't want to waste their time going to college and spending all this money. We just want them to have this whole broad experience of, here's all these different things that you can do. And we would love to see you back in the Beaverton School District. And we want to recruit them, or Northwest Regional for sure. So yeah, it's very broad as far as the interests of the students, but it's just providing that opportunity for them to explore those careers and hopefully make a determination by the time they graduate what they want to do. But we all know that even in adulthood, we change our career paths. So it might be, we might have planted the seed, and who knows, later in life, that may happen. So.
Well, it sounds like it was a win-win. It was a win for our students. It's a win for the Beck. It was a win, all the way around. And kudos to you for making lemonade out of lemons when the program was going to happen, and finding another pathway that sounds like that Northwest Regional ESD really were able to benefit. But now we have some students that we are planting the seeds of future, which we all know we need more than ever, our special ed, whether it be preschool or teachers. So thank you so much for being so innovative.
Thank you.
Picture time.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Picture time.
Picture time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks again. I think it sounds. Here, what do you want us, Tracy? Yeah, let's go over here.
Okay.
Brent?
All right.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome to come visit anytime. Please come.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh, good job.
Ready?
You know.
Yes. All right.
I have no idea.
Now we have some more bittersweet good
Yeah.
news. Bittersweet good news. So Tracy, we're gonna.
Yeah.
Miriam.
Yes.
You can look. Okay.
Yeah.
So Valerie did all the hard work on this. But we'd like to present you with just a small gift of our appreciation.
Much nicer than
That is
usual.
really, I love this. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. I think
Appreciate that.
we've said so many wonderful things, and I mean, we're so glad that you got to join us, and we know you're going to stay involved, and but thank you so much for the service that you gave the Northwest Regional ESD. So if there's anything you'd like to say.
It was on. It has been a long day. I've already cried a lot with my students on the last day of school from yesterday. But no, I just want to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to be able to be a part of the board. I think, in my 2 years here, I've learned a lot. I learned a lot of the work that the ESD does, and supporting our schools, and, just my life. Like we said, sometimes as we get older, we change career paths. And I just felt a strong calling to move forward and doing some more preventative work with younger students. And the best way to do it is to be back on the ground doing that direct case management with them and families. And just even my first year back has been amazing, but also knowing that the change was good and that there is a lot of need for our students, and I'm excited, and I'm also very sad to leave. Or I told them, I was like, wasn't quite my choice, but it's okay. I understand. But I'm still, connected to the district, and I'm hoping to still stay connected with the ESD as well. And I'll be staying with the foundation. So I'll be around, but not here on the board. I just want to thank everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented.
It's been properly moved and
Russell second.
seconded that we accept the consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nays? Motion passes unanimously. All right, reports and discussion, regional literacy supports, Ryan Plaska.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the board for a little time to share about our early literacy supports program. Before I start, I just want to let you know I've added a little content, about 5 slides, I believe. There's a place in the board packet that says add student data. So I did, or student data or something that I put. And then there's a couple slides after that kind of explain the information. So no big shocking things, but wanted to let you know. Is that formally what I need to do? Just, yeah, okay, cool. So, more, okay, you got me? There you go. Oh, there we go. And that goes back. My bad. Okay, so I just want to give a little historical context because I think it informs some of the moves we made this year. In 2023, it was my first year. I think it was early spring. I was in front of you all in Columbia County talking about kind of our best laid plans and what we had co-designed with curriculum directors. I'll explain that a little here in a second. But really hadn't done a whole bunch and didn't have a lot of people in place to do what we had hoped to do. So there's a lot to be proud of in a pretty short amount of time. What Superintendent Goldman, Executive Director McCarter at the time, and my current Executive Director, Pep, have supported all of this work in a meaningful way and allowed us to make it move. But as a first year director at that time, I didn't know what I didn't know. I was used to school district stuff and I wasn't sure exactly how to move things at the ESD. And at the time, our literacy supports was called Early Learning, and then we kind of rebranded it as Early Literacy. We had one coach doing virtual PD and really very few folks engaging in it. And so we had a lot of questions about why that was. There's obvious need in the region. Our outcomes are not where they need to be, and they haven't been. So why weren't we getting traction on it? And there were some reasons for, I think a lot of partners thought about us as like a preschool program because of the term early, not thinking about elementary reading, which was really the focus of it. And then we were spending a lot of time on root cause analysis or improvement science work where we were asking educators to come together and work on identifying their problem and what they thought the symptoms might be and what they needed to action plan for. But educators in October have a pretty clear idea of what their needs are, and they had no interest in digging into that more. They needed resources and tools. They needed foundational training around what's best practice. They needed coaching and somebody to help them through a reflective practice about how to move for their kids now. And we heard that loud and clear from the educators that we surveyed. We heard it loud and clear from the curriculum leaders in our region. But we had some good stuff coming. The early literacy framework from the Department of Ed was set to drop, and we were on some House Rules committees, myself and some colleagues. We were learning more about what the state's plan was going to be. We knew there was going to be some dollars tied to that. And so we had curriculum directors that were interested in working with us because they wanted to position themselves in a place that they could not only improve their system, but like get the grant money and understand what was expected of them. And so we had quantitative data, which is what they needed, the outcomes, the ongoing formative assessment, third grade summative assessment, national data that tells us Oregon's not doing what we need to for kids in the area of literacy. And then we had what they wanted, curriculum director saying, hey, this is our improvement plan. How can you be a part of that in a meaningful way? Right? And this is what we piloted for that first year, in the spring of that first year, shortly before I came and talked to you all. And what you really need to pay attention to here is that left side, tier 1. They identified we need our teachers to be trained better. Higher ed programs are not getting them ready to teach in a way that's going to move the ball for our kids. We need culturally sustaining and evidence-based teaching practices. And we need to have some sort of way to get like data literacy with our teachers so they can like diagnose what's going on now, today, make adjustments for tomorrow. Because if we're just waiting for summative assessment data, it's not going to move it. And so in 23-24, the coach who was working with us actually took a job to be closer to home, and we were kind of starting from scratch with this new model. And I think some building trust with curriculum leaders. Our first hire was Laurel Fisher there in the middle. She's a dynamo teacher. We knew that. What's been really exciting to watch is her leadership grow in the region. She has a ton of street cred, and we brought on Chrissy Eichelberger shortly after that, who had roots in Nestucca and had a lot of relationships with our coastal partners. And then mid-year in winter of 2024, we brought on Laura Lee Scheller, who was in Hillsborough. And she was we were looking for someone with her resume. She not only was a literacy specialist, but she was an ELD specialist supporting multilingual learners in the Hillsborough and a couple different Hillsborough buildings. So a ton of knowledge, really good teachers, and they've become really good coaches and professional development providers. And so in the next year, we kind of morphed our model a little bit to reflect the pieces of the early literacy framework from the state of Oregon. That's highlighted in green there, and that graphic on the right is found in the framework. Right, these are the pieces that we need to do. And we thought about like what's going to be available to all. We're going to have the standing PD. Who are we going to provide targeted support for? Go out to pre-service, go to staff meetings, PD days, et cetera. And then who might we coach? Because there's a lot of need around here, but our partners on the coast, there's a lot of gaps in coaching positions and people with those specific roles. So we thought about that a lot. We talked with curriculum leaders about what made the most sense and kind of landed on some guidance. And so some of the outcomes currently, looking now at this past year, we have a 4-part series that hits on all those strands. Over 120 educators from 13 districts have participated. We we support LETTERS, which is language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. It's a high quality professional development program, 2-year scope and sequence, and a huge commitment. Licenses cost about $1,900, and once you open it, you're in. We can't reassign it to someone else. But we've had 130 educators and leaders. There's an admin track. Commit to that. We have 40 new teachers starting next year. Chrissy and Laurel have become adjunct professors through Eastern Oregon, so they can provide graduate credit for our teachers, which is a real carrot to participate and stay in. And we're working with the WREN on how to support maybe some sub-release time in order to get them some more, an opportunity to complete all the assessments and things. It's essentially a college course. And our teachers are not just, dialing out and not participating. Here's the growth in the pre and the post tests on our most recent LETTERS assessments for this year, right? So they're getting a real depth of knowledge, not only from what we're doing, how we're coaching, but these other professional development, trying to give access points to everybody. We've done book studies, which did not land on Zoom, but once we started offering to do them in school buildings, they've been a really popular offering where we could come in, specifically that writing revolution. Teachers are excited about learning about literacy and how to support it with writing the right ways. This is just some of the glowing feedback from partners and teachers. The gist being, we didn't have this stuff available to us. You listened and you provided it, and it's working. Our superintendents have said much the same thing. We've given them a lot of different chances to provide feedback as we just continue to design forward. They're excited about changing practice. They want and need what we're doing. They push a lot about implementation, like get to our schools, right? We love sending our teachers. They seem to really enjoy it. Please come to our schools and do this stuff. That's going to be a lot more meaningful and visible. And And what we find is it's not only just about implementation, like starting new things and thinking about things differently. You got to de-implement a lot of stuff that's clogging the works and not making the kids' achievement grow. There's videos in here that I encourage you to watch at your leisure. They're short and there are coaches doing some modeling and some training. I will call on this, the column there on the right. We've provided this small group literacy training that's a full day. In the morning, they bring their data. They look at their classroom information. They think about what lagging skills the kids have. They develop an action plan for how they're going to use core reading instruction and small groups. And then in the afternoon, we have 9 stations where our specialists are modeling what these different small groups should look like depending on their class needs. And we've done that here twice. We now partnered in Multnomah ESD, Willamette ESD, and we provided one in Salem as well. And they sell out every time because teachers are like, I can do that tomorrow. And again, this is some of the things, a non-exhaustive list of the stuff our folks are doing. There's with the early literacy initiative, there's a lot of new curriculum adoption. There's a lot of folks thinking about how do we supplement and provide interventions, and a lot of people are starting from scratch, and so our folks are positioned in a way to help. There's some more videos. They're very cute in kindergartens and 4th grades. And this is the student data that I plugged in, and I didn't get explicit permission to share who they are, but so I didn't feel comfortable leaving the names on there. But these are folks, these districts, the 2 I'll show you, both engage with our coaches by bringing them into their instructional leadership teams. They sit with their SUPs, they sit with their other leaders, and they make PD plans together. They decide how it's going to work in a systematic way, how they're going to get teachers what they need. And you can see as far as accuracy scores go, so kids being able to read words accurately. In this particular district, we have movement from 51% to 81% end of year. And that's meaning the kids are reading 96% of their passage accurately. That gets to that threshold in 2nd grade. You have to be reading 96% of the words accurately, or your fluency is not going to be there and your reading comprehension is not going to be there. So these are really important foundational skills. They're not the only important skill, but a very important foundational skill. And that translates into these composite scores. So the student's ability to read accurately, fluently, which is efficiently or quick, and with prosody. So in a speaking tone, not trying to just read it really fast like a robot or every time you see it, right? Because you have to be able to have that prosody to be able to process the learning. And you see, so the growth here is, again, from about 45% beginning of year, this is whole school, to 55% end of the year. And that's not just a pre and post test, like the expectation climbs too. So kids are making significant growth, and this is just the start, year 1 of the engagement with these folks in this way. Here's the 2nd district that tells much of the same story. Accuracy on the right, composite score on the left. And this is really promising. Like, I know it doesn't seem like a high bar, but to have over 60% of your elementary school reading at benchmark right now is like an anomaly. And it shouldn't be, but it is. And so this work and the model that they've piloted, and the more that we're starting to engage the right ways with districts, it's working. And this is just a 3rd data set I wanted to share. All of those folks in letters who are working with 1,000 kids across, I think I said 13 school districts, they were required to do their benchmarking data and a coaching cycle with our folks as well. And so you can see that those letters folks who are not all in the same school or at the same grade level, who've increased benchmark readers, which is at low risk, and decreased the kids at high risk. So we're moving students up. It's not just that kids are bouncing around. Kids are moving from low or high risk into that some risk, and we're moving kids up. I'll skip this for the sake of time. But I think what I just wanted to reiterate is, like, we're working on all of these parts of reading, but reading comprehension and being a skilled reader requires accuracy. It requires these word reading skills. This is an example of an activity I did with the superintendents last year. I'm not going to do it, but where we talked about, like, what do you think accurate, to be an accurate reader who can understand a passage, what's that number? What's that percentage, right? And I just shared it's 96%. So even at 87%, where I've changed 13% of the words or omitted a few, trying to answer comprehension questions after reading something like this is ridiculous. You have no idea This is a 5th grade passage from an OSAS practice test around inference. And so if you have students who are reading just 87% accurate, they do not have a shot of demonstrating that they are a skilled reader on any kind of summative assessment. So we have to get them there. And there's a lot that happens alongside of that with language comprehension and vocabulary development. But this is a primary focus of our program, because K-5, our kids are not reading accurately and they're not reading fluently. I'll skip this as well. But this is the now our kind of newest iteration of the services we're going to provide based on that superintendent feedback, the teacher feedback. We're trying to, I meet monthly with the director of the early literacy department at ODE to try to find out more about what resources will be coming, how we, Executive Director McCarter and I, Chief Academic Officer McCarter and I are on a state literacy team with representatives from all ESDs to try to think about how we can coordinate the work. And so I just wanted to call out that we're helping a handful of school districts, which you might hear. I know Superintendent Goldman's asked a lot about his high dosage tutoring, what it is, what it's supposed to be, how you qualify for it, how much does it cost. And so we consider ourselves experts in this, being able to not only support with technical assistance, but provide folks with trainings that will get their people highly qualified to provide high dosage tutoring. It doesn't just have to be a computer or a program or something. We can train our instructional assistants and our teachers to do this under the definitions of ODE. So I think that's it.
All right. Any questions of Ryan?
I'll go fast, but Ryan, that was amazing. And so you touched on it briefly. So it's just exciting because everything is clean and crisp and targeted and database and the success that's happening. So my question, and Superintendent Goldman, this goes to you. So it's 2 things. You commented about trying to understand resources. So the momentum seems huge. You still have interest. So we feel like we're moving forward on solid ground with our districts in terms of funding for this particular program.
I thought you were going to the world of the state grant world.
No,
But with district
this
participation,
is right?
this is a combination of things. So this is the staff are funded out of the Student Success Act Technical Assistance Grant, which has been reduced. And we expect there to be a sustained reduction there. Because our districts also purchase into through the local service plan, through our instruction shop, in general, we've been able to basically blend these resources together and we'll be able to sustain these programs. But our districts have been asked to help us make prioritized decisions. This program is highly prioritized in our by our districts.
So then my second question, so thank you, is I know that there has been a lot of advocacy at the state and at ODE, but has a presentation similar to this been provided to ODE? I mean, it just seems like you have such momentum, such success. I do not understand why this just is not.
It's a great question.
And,
Yeah.
and it's just rolling, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
I know I'm preaching to the choir, but this just seems dumb. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just, so.
Preach. Well, Chief Academic Officer McCarter has got us a seat at the table with folks, and we've been able to think and talk through different, again, the House bill rulemaking, the different legislation. And I feel like our input is heard, but it hasn't landed, to be quite honest, in the last several months the way that we think it should. There's going to be some statewide supports that roll out that I think are informed partially by what we do. We've had at the OAESD conference, we spoke with some real key players in ODE who I know liked what we had to say and liked our outcomes. I don't know how they can, if they have the deciding role about how it's going to happen. But we also, I think I was here 2 months ago talking about Oregon Response to Instruction Intervention Project, which lives in literacy land alongside these folks. And they're like this think tank. And there's a lot of collaboration there. in our region and outside of our region with some of these trainings. We just try to keep publicizing it. And, what matters right now is that these guys are doing it for the region's kids. And hopefully this model is, they try to scale it. I don't see how, I'm gonna be careful, but I don't see how we take some state coach and send them out into random schools to improve things and expect any kind of sustainability if you're not engaging like their whole system. Because the minute they go, it's, so will the guru. And so we have to focus on a system commitment. And so that's kind of our model.
I guess, it's just frustrating. So I apologize if words were not appropriately chosen. But I think, Brian, you admitted up front, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so what did you learn? And it was very concrete and specific ways. How do you get connection and make all those pieces work, not only for just the educators and obviously good outcomes for kids. So it just seems like anything that comes in that new is going to have that curve and that you've already got it going.
Yeah.
So anyway, just thank you.
Yeah.
Really, and thank you all. Thank you, Megan. Amazing.
So I'll say one more thing on this. Ryan, it can be very frustrating, right? Because we feel like what we have and what Ryan and his team have been able to build is exactly what the state is after. A strong technical assistance program with trusted leaders working in the science of reading and a coaching model, right? And we've been able to develop that here. I will say our ESD is probably the only ESD that has been able to do that in the period of time that we're talking about here. And I think the state is very nervous about scalability. And then there is just a philosophical, I would say, it's not really philosophical. There's some structural decisions that need to be made at the state level about how ESDs are used in systemic change efforts. And so in the prior administration with Cole Gill, there was a very big investment in ESDs as technical assistance providers in a regional basis. And they would call it investing in the middle, because we have the regional context. And people change, leadership shifts, things get lost. And so we're trying to re-engage. And at the same time, it's a very busy and intense time at the legislature. So getting the right conversations with the right people is difficult. Ryan has done an incredible job of doing that. He's actually going to be on a trip with a few folks from ODE to a national conference on intensive interventions. And I think we still have a really good chance of being highly effective in our region with our school districts with the structure, hopefully, that's being baked.
Just one quick question I have. When you refer to letters and the cost that is with that, and you didn't say which districts have it of our, it seems like that starts to be an issue because not all districts have a superintendent of teaching and learning. Not all districts have TOSAs, every district is put together differently. Not all principals even know this methodology. So where do we get with the letters as far as that expense and that at least the ones that we're trying to deal with, that we're just trying to do our own system within that? Because I can just see the things that you just said, how many breakdowns there can be just in our school districts that we serve in the Northwest Regional ESD.
Yeah, that's a great question. Through the partnership with Eastern Oregon, where we've been able to provide this graduate credit towards the reading endorsement, they started a year and a half ago providing this program called the Reading Clinic, which is a virtual class. They're in LeGrand, so it's from all over the state where they are dialing in for, believe it's 12 weeks. So it's letters light in that regard, where they're getting training on these foundational skills on evidence-based teaching. And then there's an identified mentor in their system who's been trained prior, who helps them through like action researching the different methods. And so we're piloting that next year with our coaches as the mentors. They're starting with 25 educators who we've already got signed on. And the idea is if they go through that, some of them have had letters, some of them haven't, then they become our mentors. And we can start to grow in-house, you know, through different relationships or funding or some release time through the NREN. So that's our thinking, is we need to get this more locally controlled because the letters licenses may not be a sustainable thing. And so how do we grow our own mentors and specialists?
I was gonna say grow your own, but I know some people don't like that terminology.
No.
And there's also groups. Is this, any of this money gonna all come from the governor's?
No, we don't get any of that.
But I mean, it couldn't go through like to Eastern Oregon at that college with Rhonda there with teaching. Because right now we're at a point that we need to teach people to teach the science of reading, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's all in the works.
So Ryan said we don't get any of that, but so the state framework right now is to have 10 technical assistance regions. And then there will be a process by which ODE will identify those regional, whoever's going to be the technical assistance partner. I guarantee we are going to want to be a technical assistance provider in our region. We'll have to work within a system that might not exactly match up with ours. But I'm venturing to say it will still be better than having multiple partners in the same region trying to do different kinds of stuff. So we'll see how it all rolls out from the rules that are going to be made at the state board by somebody named Becky, Tim Chuck.
No.
Well, I will say that that also addressing this like capacity in our different districts with all these different infrastructures, that model I described with like having our specialists sit in on their leadership teams to help steer what needs to happen next based on the data that they have, based on the feedback that we got. They work with them on walkthrough tools. So they go around and they can make some database assessment on, okay, what does the next PD day need to look like given what we know qualitatively and quantitatively? So I think at the very least, having our folks more and more at the table in our districts, and that's happening with SUPS or student services, who's the only admin for 15 things or whatever it is, because of the trust they've built, because of the skills they have, that's happening more.
I just have some wonderings, as I think this is amazing, and I do think that if there's more buy-in, we can see some improvement. Some wonderings I think that come to me is there's often also a lot of students that aren't making it to school. So I know that there's like an emphasis on how do we get kids to school to learn, to be able to be a part of, such like a really great literacy opportunity. And so I'm wondering if that is something that is taken into account, that, teachers, of course, if the districts are buying in, amazing, but we also have such a high amount of kids not going to school, so they will not be able to, take advantage. So any considerations on how do we break those barriers to getting them? And also sometimes when there's just consistent changes in what teachers are teaching to help our kids learn, it's like, okay, now there's another change in a curriculum that we're presenting. And so it's just like, if there's ever going to be a level of just, this is what we're sticking and we're going with it. And I was like, okay, now we have to relearn something new, because I think that affects then the buy-in. But this sounds amazing. And I'm just like really excited about it. But, there's also some barriers where some kids might not be able to participate, just given that there's other things that are preventing them from getting to school.
Yeah, I got probably a really super long answer. I shouldn't. It's already known at this. But one of the slides did illustrate like through this process with the CNI directors, who again, they might be the CNI rep, but do a lot of things. It's helped inform like the co-design with a handful of other teams that I listed there, including our attendance services. And how do we think about all the barriers to school, one of them being a student not feeling academically successful, and how do we bridge that gap? And in the Early Literacy Success Initiative, there's also community-based grants that we've helped some partners apply for and get, where they can get out into the community and give some tutoring support and instructional support to maybe help make a plan to get students back who aren't attending regularly. But it's a really complex challenge, of course. Yeah.
That's a whole nother presentation.
Yeah.
Any other? I know we took more time on this than what we thought we would, but I think it's a really important topic in the business that we are in. And it's going to be a very, very important topic going forward. So I appreciate you taking so much time to explain what we're doing and answering all of our questions.
Yeah,
So
of
thank
course.
you very much.
You bet.
All right, our next report is integrated programs. Megan?
Tough act to follow. Hi, thank you everyone for having me tonight. I will try and go as short and quick as I can because I know we're a little behind schedule. Previously, I've been referring to this as integrated guidance. It was originally the Student Success Act. It's now being called integrated programs, just so that you know in case you see it somewhere else. We have a very large, amazing team that I work with here at the ESD to provide our integrated program support. And as you can see over time, basically what ODE did was they took a bunch of different non-competitive grants and they put all the applications and reporting together, and they continue to add more to the application as we go. How I've talked to you all about this previously is there's basically two ways that we support this in our technical assistance. The first way is the left-hand side. I call it getting and keeping the money. We help you apply, we help you get the money, we help you do the reports so that you keep it. And then on the other side, the middle and the right side is how we actually support districts with ensuring that that money has a significant positive impact on kids, right? So how are you actually implementing your plan? How are we measuring impact? How are we scaling learning? How are we making sure that the dollars are actually doing what we want them to do? So I'm going to go through kind of each of those briefly to just let you know where we're at this year. In terms of technical assistance, we have a strategy and our strategic plan aligned to that, and it's really around deepening and having more authentic community engagement with it for our districts with their communities as they design these plans so that they're really in co-design with those that they serve. On the left-hand side here, and you'll see this is actually modeled after Ryan's universal, strategic, and individualized tiered menu, but this one is for integrated guidance. We provide a lot of different things. Some of the key pieces here are around story circles, community engagement, there is data, there's communications, and we also provide some specific supports for small and rural districts and also for what we call TSI and CSI schools or districts, which is basically schools who have been designated for federal improvement. So you're either in the bottom 5% of the state performance-wise, academically, or you actually have achievement gaps between all of your students in a specific focal student group. So we provide all those supports, and on the right are some examples of the different types of trainings that we've been providing this year around those different things. This year, we really hung our hat on having 3 key resources for technical assistance that we were going to make really, really good. And those were the 3 things we were going to do. So the first one is our application organizer. This is probably our most highly praised thing that we put out. It basically takes this entire application, it breaks it out into a spreadsheet that has a month-by-month tab that if you follow it with your engagement team, it provides you an agenda, facilitation notes, all of the resources that you need to facilitate a continuous improvement process that engages your community authentically with it. And then it's aligned all the application questions across the months so that if you answer them as you go, and then it compiles them on a separate tab that's in the order that ODE will want you to paste them into the application when you're done. So if you follow this, it basically chunks it out and makes it much easier to do. The second thing is we've built out, originally we had a community partnership toolkit focused on empathy interviews and story circles, which we've presented to you all before. Kelsey and her team built out an actual community engagement plan template across the entire year with checkpoints of how do you then go back after those things and report back to community. Here's what we heard, here's what we're doing now. And then the third piece was updating our strategic planning and budgeting guide, which is based on Hattie's research and providing suggestions for districts as they're looking at their needs assessment and data on what we were just talking about with Ryan, right? What are the research-based strategies that we know are actually going to move metrics for kids around those areas? And it has strategies they can do, ways they can engage with us in those strategies, budget recommendations, and resources that our teams have built out for districts to utilize. Okay, talk a little bit about implementation support, which is, I think, the more fun side, because that's like, how do we make sure this stuff really gets to kids? We have a lot of strategic plan strategies aligned to implementation. So I'm not going to go into all of them, but it's across multiple collective commitments and multiple strategies that we're doing this work. And one of the key things in the strategic plan that we've really been working on is moving how we measure implementation from like, did people show up to the PD we provided and did they like it? To are they actually implementing the practices that we're teaching them? And then therefore, are we seeing student outcomes move? Which is a really hard but exciting change to make. Here is an updated tracker that you guys can see of all our districts, all of our different programs that align to implementation across the integrated programs. And you'll see here it's a little bit different this year. Previously, we've just had little check boxes, which sometimes could give us some faulty data, like you showed up to one training, check. That's not really authentic participation. So now PEP's team has really been working to build out rubrics for participation. You can see we have like high, moderate, limited, and no participation. And we have a lot of programs. So I put them all in here for you so you can see which districts were participating in which programs. And so then the last part I want to talk about is measuring and scaling impact, which is probably my favorite part of it. And so some really exciting things we use a couple of different ways to measure this. One is the district satisfaction survey that we send out at the end of each year. We just got this data from Kelsey recently. Across the board, we have 100% satisfaction around the integrated program support. That ranges from, they're satisfied with the overall services, the choices, and all of the individual supports that I listed out there that I talked about under the technical assistance piece. We also had all of our districts submit their applications on time, including one at 10 p.m. on the night it was due, but they all got in. And so in terms of measuring and scaling, what we've been really working to figure out over some time is like, who's participating, and then how effective is that programming? Are our services aligning to districts' strategic plans? And then are our services supporting actually moving student outcomes? And we're still in the process of doing this, but I'll show you kind of where we've been and where we're going. This is, again, what our original tracking of participation looked like. We've now got a more rubric thing that I just showed you a few slides ago. That is part of it. And then the other piece is when I first got here, this was before integrated programs, we started with analyzing districts' continuous improvement plans, Measure 98 plans, and their SSA plans. So those all used to be separate things. Now they're all together. This was my first attempt at doing it. If you looked at the left-hand side of the wall, we literally printed out and cut out all the strategies and then tried to put all the ones that were similar from the different districts together. I actually gave up halfway through this, and then my office looked like a rainbow. But we then started doing it in a spreadsheet, which was a little bit more effective, but still pretty hard. The spreadsheet took a couple of different renditions, but at the end of this first round, the goal was to look at like, what are your strategies? How do they align to what we're providing? And are you participating in things that align to your strategic priorities? And then we created these District 1-pagers, which I've shown some of you before, that basically said, here's your strategy, here's the aligned services, and are you participating in those? And do we have any recommendations of things you could participate in that might help you with your priorities? We did this again in the next round this was now the first round of integrated programs. Again, this looks similar. We analyzed all of their strategies, categorized them, and then looked at if they were participating in aligned services. And you can see we started to get a little simpler with what we were giving out to districts, less emojis, just make it a little easier to read. And then we actually made it even easier the next year, much simpler. And this is just every single one of your strategies, if you're participating in something, and then you can see the color coding was if it's high, limited, with our rubric for participation. And we also, at the very end, made some suggestions for here's something you're participating in, and here are some really high leverage strategies you could write into your next round of the application cycle, which they just did now. And Usually all of that work takes a team of like 5 people, a lot of hours. And so what I actually did this spring was work with ChatGPT to build a custom GPT to do some of this work for us. So we now have an integrated programs analyzer for Oregon ESDs. We shared this at OAESD this spring so that other ESDs could utilize this to replicate some of the work that we've been doing. It takes all the district plan, it analyzes the strategies to create the categories that we used to do by hand. It then counts up for our region, what are the most used strategies. You can see early literacy is every single district, all 20 districts have an early literacy strategy somewhere within their plan. And we were finding our top used strategies before, but again, just took us a lot longer. And then it showed us what of our services aligned to those top strategies and provided some gaps or identified needs and recommendations for us as an ESD based on that data. And so we are actually finished now much faster with our analysis, which is really exciting. And I've been able to then look at our analysis from all 3 different processes that we did to do this over time. I think there's some exciting trends we can dig into another time around this, but you can see there's like a huge jump in early literacy strategies. I do think part of that is from the requirement that they have to write them in, but I also know that Ryan's team has done a lot of great work to make sure those are really high leverage strategies that are in there. You can see Brian's work in MTSS and RTI and assessment has really helped boost the number of districts with those types of strategies. That's not a required strategy, so I do think a lot of our work has really helped there. I would call it career and college readiness has jumped high. And additionally, culturally sustaining practices and inclusive practices and equity are strategies that we're seeing in much higher rates across our region than previously that align really highly to the services that we think are really good for kids that we're providing. And so we use this data to analyze, co-design service alignment with districts, build out our LSP, think about new services and new initiatives that we know will be impactful for kids. And so what's coming next? We've built out some new supports for our technical assistants based on feedback. We're aligning to the new accountability requirements next year. We have another custom GPT with an equity-based continuous improvement guide. We're doing some success storytelling and continued TSI, CSI supports. And later this month, we're going to be doing stock take to look at some of these strategic plan metrics I showed you more, and you'll get that data of how we're doing on those at the summer work session. We're finalizing new metrics for our strategic plan for next year in the final year, and we're actually talking about what strategic planning will look like for our new plan. That was a lot.
That was a lot. Thank you. That was very good.
Any questions?
All right. Are there any questions for our Chief Academic Officer? All right. Thank you so much. I'm sure we're going to talk more about this at the retreat. So thank you. All right. Our next report is the first reading of board policies. Won't list the alphabet there, but
There's a bunch.
yeah.
However, for the board's review, this should be it in terms of bringing you current since about barely. And I'm praying I didn't miss any. But I do believe that when the board makes this particular batch of policies, adopts them at its next meeting, you will be caught up until there are any new ones from this legislative session. So you might have maybe a 30 to 60 day break on policies, provided there aren't any out in August. Just for the board's information, we have had a transition meeting with Valerie, Catherine, and my assistant Isabel in terms of how we can keep these continuing to move forward. Valerie's done an outstanding job of creating a policy tracker that we can check when did we catch them. But this is, unless there are any questions, this is the last batch of first readings, and I don't know what else to say other than it's your last batch. I don't know what else to say.
Well, they're in your board book. There's a variety of things there. Does anybody have any questions about any of the updates or changes that are in there? Make sure I'm looking for Ernest there in case he has his hand up. All right. We're agreeable. See how painless that was your last time around?
Good last board report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, administrative reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just keeping with the theme of catching up. I'm happy to take any questions about the amazing levels of work that are reported here to the board.
Okay, anybody have any questions about the administrative report? All right. We have one action item tonight. Jordan, would you like to join us to approve the May 2025 financial report?
Well, I am sitting between you and the door. I will say there's not been a lot of change. I've made 2 notes in the second paragraph of my report about, the first is that all of our funds are cash positive on this report, which is just nice to see. We've talked a lot about cash flow this year, probably more than anybody cared to. But on that vein of thought, we actually got more good news this week from the advocacy efforts we've done. This one far more technical and less exciting. But we have already signed our contracts for EIE, CSE, and RISE for next year. The initial contracts that we signed only have the state funds. They don't have any federal funds identified. When working with ODE, we learned that one of the big hangups they had with some of the asks that we had around helping us with the cash flow problem is that federal funds aren't appropriated yet. We can't do these agreements, things like that. So Dan and I and a group of superintendents and business managers worked with ODE to develop a new process where we execute an original agreement that just has the state funds allocated, and then we will do amendments with federal funds when those come through. But what this does is the other aspect of it is on the distribution schedule. On August 1, we are now allowed to claim the entire Q1 allocation. And then it'll go back to the reimbursement basis for the rest of the grant. But in that first quarter, we get fronted cash on August 1st to cover the first quarter of programming. So I've been talking all year about
Progress.
this is where I think our cash balances are going to end up. And I think that can fund our operations through October. And there's been like this ominous tone to that. And we're going to have to stay on top of this. Superintendent Goldman has mentioned before, there's no accountability around this. Like ODE doesn't get in trouble if they don't hit these timelines. But this is a huge step in the right direction. And I just want to take a minute to thank our ODE partners for working with us on this. It's a cautious optimism, but an optimism that we're not going to be having these like existential crises with cash going forward. So that's really the big update for the day. The other is just, I wanted to put a note in here. We have a modified accrual basis of accounting, which means we recognize revenues and expenses based on when the revenues are committed to us and expenses based on when we actually receive goods and services, not when the cash goes in and out. And so this is like when we talk about all of my financial projections and everything else, depending on when certain revenues show up and when certain expenses post, it could change what that actual fund balance is. It doesn't change anything about what resources are actually available to the agency for operating next year. It's just technical stuff. So I just wanted to put a note out there. We will review the end of year financials. I imagine we haven't talked about this, Dan, sorry. But I imagine we will review them at the July work session or at the August board meeting. That'll take questions if you have any.
Any questions for Jordan? Financials? I hope we'll really will follow up with when we do get our funding so that we can follow up with our legislators, because that's what we said that we would do. So And again, I know we won't know by August 1 if it works or not, but I just hope we don't go too much past like October or, so we can make note of that. And it sounds like you came up with a good compromise, and we'll see if that works. So thank you for working on that and working with ODE on that. So
Thank you.
any other questions at all? Do I hear a motion?
I move we approve the June financial report as presented.
A second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the May 2025 financial report. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, with that, all those in favor of the adoption of the financial report, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes unanimously. All right, board, this is your time. Any comments from the board?
Just that we're gonna miss Miriam. It's been a pleasure serving with you.
We need to get a picture with your plaque before you get there. So
Black picture.
plaque picture. So, any other comments? All right, I just want to remind everybody, we don't officially have a meeting in July, but we will have a work session / board retreat on July 31st, which is a Thursday, all day, at Neakani. Bring your bikinis and your surfboards.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, I was getting mixed up. Debbie, I bet you're sorry you're missing it, huh?
I'm so sad. Maybe I'll just get a room next door and just show up just for the evening entertainment.
Anyway, with that, I adjourn the June meeting of Northwest Regional ESD.